Hello, English 46A. Okay, now we're in part three of this sequence of tapes. Suddenly my camera froze, QuickTime froze, and so here we are. So, George Gascoigne, again, performative, dramatic engagement. And so it starts off with we're on page 506 with Gascoigne's lover basically saying, yeah, so I betrayed you. So I fooled around. So I had sex with somebody else. What are you going to do about it? Or how much is it really going to matter? You know, really? I mean, so this isn't, what? This is a very far cry from poem we just read about sin. This figure doesn't have a sense of sin. Okay, but that's not the emphasis in the poem. If you think about it, the lover, this beloved, the woman who has betrayed George Gascoigne, she gets 4 lines. And then Gascoigne, the speaker of the poem, and I'm probably going to call it by the name of the poet in this case because it's a little closer than it will be in later times. Okay, the speaker of the poem, of Gascoigne's poem, says, "Thus did my mistress once amaze my mind with doubt and pop to question for the nonce to beat my brains about." Okay, so now he's thinking like, well, wow, okay, again, because she's not denying, she's not excusing, she's not making telling lies to get out of it. She's basically saying, yeah, okay, fine, you caught me. What if I did? All right. To which he then gets 1, 2, 3, 4. So he gets 16 lines to explain what he said to her. Okay. But really, he's talking to us. Okay. He's sort of saying the man's position when a woman does that. And he's not happy with it. And, but he takes her language of how many fish are in the sea and he runs with it. And this is a common element of the style all the way through until we hit 1700 and beyond. We're not going to go that far actually, but in 46B it'll start there where you pick up a certain metaphor or conceit, it's called, about, oh, if women are fish, if lovers are fish in the sea, there's a lot of fish, etc., and you just carry it through. um, my main point right now is not exactly what he said, but breaking down and reflecting upon the dramatic exchange. So this is where it helps to ground yourself and try to figure out, okay, oh, here's a signal. Thus did my mistress once da 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 da. See, that's guiding us for about the first 4 lines. And then if you follow how the quotation marks work, she never gets to speak again. It's his response to that practical and yet philosophical question of, what if your loved one just openly admits that she, had an affair, he betrayed you? Okay, now notice this is not a love poem. I mean, it's about love, so it's definitely a love poem, but it's not a "I love you so much, I'm burning with love." So this is where this is part of the sport thing. These are still short lyric poems. This is not a sonnet, by the way. This is a short lyric poem. Sonnets are those blocks. Um, but the idea, like, how many different angles on love can there be? And also, you might have mentioned, Wyatt was complaining about his love life. Here's a complaint about love life. So you have continuity, but you also have maybe a little shift in that sense. All right, next. The Lullaby of a Lover. Okay, so this poem. Okay, so the speaker here is aging. He's losing his virility, his vigor, his energy, his lust for life. And so he wrote a poem devoting one stanza, frankly, to each item. Okay. So it's almost like, go to sleep, little child, say goodbye, say goodnight. And he sets it up as if he's going to sing this lullaby. And in line, I'm on page 507. And in line 7, full many wanton babes have I, which must be stilled with lullaby. And there's a note, unruly babes, unruly but with a sexual overtone. And he's not talking about literal children. He's talking about different qualities of himself. The second stanza, starting on line 9, first lullaby, my youthful years. He's got to say goodbye to youth. He's getting older. And with youth goes other things. Stanza 3, lullaby, my gazing eyes. And so this actually, okay, there's a little bit of technical knowledge in terms of the Elizabethans thought that you project a ray. That's how you see, as opposed to things coming in. Okay, but the idea that when he looks in the mirror, his youthful experience is gone. Okay, so his youthful experience. In the next one, that physical energy and appetite. Lully, good night. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Stanza 5, my loving boy, my little Robin. He's talking to his penis. Yes. There are many body poems in the Elizabethan period. We actually have fewer than you'd expect in this section. So he's saying, my penis isn't, erectile dysfunction, we might say. It's part of a certain type of poetry. There's a note saying some people thought his work was obscene. Okay, you were warned. Okay, and then he brings it all back up. On page 508 at the lines 38, 39, 40, he's using excuse me, he's using a money metaphor that basically he spent all of his virility cash, as it were. There's a good note at the bottom of the page, and then he brings it up and sums it up. And this is a common quality of these poems too. Thus lullaby, say goodnight to my youth, mine eyes, meaning being able to see myself looking young, my will, my energy, my wear, note says that's his genitals, his penis, and all that was, okay, he can't hold it back. But you know what? And this is where the lullaby comes in. Okay, he might be getting older. He might be saying goodbye to his vigor and his virility. But you know what? If he gets a little bit of sleep, he'll have a little bit more energy the next day. Okay, so this is meant to be humorous. I can imagine this being humorous and emblematic. Maybe aging guys are like, yes. Maybe, the women are like, yes. And also he's making fun of himself. He's not, he doesn't mind basically making a butt of himself in terms of a sort of joke. This matters because the next poem, Woodsmanship. And so it's a long narrative memoir. And in it, Gascoigne is going to talk about his failures. It starts with the literal failure. He has a patron. He has the patron, the Lord, my worthy Lord, Lord Grey. And apparently that when they go hunting, he just, he isn't given a regular bow. He's given a crossbow because he doesn't have the skill set to shoot a regular bow. A crossbow is much easier to fire. I'm resisting going there. Okay. But even then, he either misses or he doesn't want to shoot, or he ends up getting the deer that has is pregnant, which is not a good thing. And so he's got this list of failures. It starts off from literal failures. His woodsmanship. We go out in the woods, we go hunting, and you're always wondering, how come I hit anything and I never am successful? Well, you know what, Lord? I have a long line of failures. Okay, and so he starts walking you through it. And so I tend to look for things like first, next that, yet. I look for these grammatical signals to help me see. I have to reread this, and I go sentence by sentence. I read the biographical note. So when he talks about, first, there he was trying to study philosophy, line 18. Next, he shot to be a man of law. Like, he failed at philosophy. And there's a note about that. He then goes to the law. And then he goes to be a courtier. That sort of thing. And he talks about his flaws and mistakes. And when you're reading Dr. Faustus by Marlowe, the play, Faustus's opening speech is how, he thought to study this discipline and that discipline and the other discipline, and all of these disciplines fall short of what will suit his ambition. And and so again, this I basically, the Faustus passage helps me with this more than the other way around. But this is a little poem, Woodsmanship, about flaws and mistakes. And in that sense, it's an odd poem. I mean, who wants to dwell on the things they failed to do? And I guess Gascoigne's going to get points from his patron for his honesty, for his ability to put it into words, and measured words, right? And rhyming words, that sort of thing. He tried to be on page 510. He shot to be a soldier, failed at that also. We have some other notes again as he talks about, for example, astrology did not shine on him. He was born under a strange star. And we might think of the various tales and prologues in which we heard about this from Chaucer. Chaucer may be 14th century, and now we're in the 16th century. But that same belief that the stars and the planets not just measure us, but shape us in that sense. And so I found it interesting for you to have this gentleman here who's presenting us with his flaws and his failures. And then the last, after line 115 on, he's going in and reflecting on sort of, the herd goes this way, I go this way. I don't know. It's I'm trying to think how to sum this up. Just the idea of okay, what's your point, Gascoigne? And so to me, it builds. And so a key part of this will be in this last section where he comes back to the doe and what these deer represent. And again, we've had deer in multiple poems standing in for other things. So I'm partly trying to help you with the structure of these things. I'm also trying not to overstate things. Okay. All right. Fulk Gravel, one of my favorite poets from the period. And let's look at from, I don't know if it's Kailika or Salisa is probably how they pronounced it. Okay. Number 69. I'm on page 512. And we have a 3-stanza poem, number 69. And it's about how the world and love has gone awry. And it's a lament, but there's this cold, clear tone. There's a sense of distance here, like everything's gone wrong. And you might think we just had flaws and failures, and a sort of this aching sense from Gascoigne that he's a screw up. You had Anne von Locke, who's like, I'm a sinner. And we don't hear about any individual sins, but this sense of having gone awry. And then here in Fulk Gravel's first poem, 69, we also have this measure of the world, like where things are not working out. Now, this is, again, a love poem. And the first 2 stanzas, when all this goes away, there's a very general perspective here, like looking at the world and how time moves. When love doth change his seat from heart to heart. That's the beginning of the second stanza. Okay, we went from all the sort of things of the world failing and decaying. We then go to love and changeability, lack of constancy. But it's sort of a general approach to it, this general perspective. But in the third stanza, it gets personal. My age of joy is past, of woe begun. And it builds from what we've gotten, which is, you were basically, making commentary on how the world decays, love changes. And why? Because it happened to you. Okay. But as you read it, it's sort of the wheel turns. That's how it is. So I don't know if this is stoicism. Not going to hurt me. You just got to put up with it. Is it cynicism? Of course this happens, and it happened to me, because the world will do that to you. I think it's closer to stoicism. But again, how you read the poem, there's a range of interpretation, though the facts, there are some clear facts, I would say. I'm going to keep coming back to this. All right. 82. Again, it's an age poem, and one of the things we're going to get is carpe diem poems. Carpe diem is Latin for seize, grasp the day, meaning make the best use of this present moment as you possibly can. It's brother or sister to the memento mori, remember that you too shall die. This deep sense of loss. But there's a difference in tone between memento mori, remember you will die, we will all die, and carpe diem, which is more forward moving, right? Like grab it. Okay. Later, a poet we may read, we may run out of time, will say, gather ye rosebuds while you may. Grab those flowers, because you know what? Flowers fade, and you fade too. Okay, carpe diem poems. You that seek what life is in death, now find it air that once was breath. New names unknown, old names gone, till time end bodies, but souls none. Reader, then make time while you be, but steps to your eternity. Okay, you who are getting older, you don't breathe so easily, you can't remember things, you're going to die. You understand this. But hey, reader, you better note this too, whether you're aging or not. Okay, carpe diem, make time, get things done. Okay, in 100, on page 513, again, all these three poems end up with this internal focus. Even though you have, say, a generalized sort of sense, the power to me comes out of this personal voice. Okay, so in 100, in night when colors all to black are cast. Okay, it's a nighttime scene. It's going to be a late night self-torture of the mind, where you're going to turn over and over in your mind, where fear stirred up with witty tyranny confounds all powers, and thorough self-offense doth forge and raise impossibility. When your mind goes and like, really, in reasonable terms, none of this is going to happen. But at night, in the middle of the night, your mind will just go to the worst case scenario and have it happen. I mean, this is a very common, bit of human psychology. Some people sleep easy. Some people don't. For me, this puts it into, it dramatizes it. It shares it. So, there's a commonality here. Maybe I feel better knowing other people do the same thing. That's a power of sort of the public power of poetry. And here it ends with the idea that, you're thinking about, devils, metaphorically, bad things are going to happen, but it's inward evils. I mean, you're doing it to yourself. The mind will punish you in this way. And, there's a certain coldness to it, but there's also an integrity to this in terms of naming and describing this as best as possible. And, he's not trying to comfort me so much as to guide me. Again, I'm trying to assess the difference between these poets, and it comes down to the sort of personal presentation, the personal voice, the personal attitude. That's what I do with these poems. Okay.